What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Hanging in, just about.
Okay, great. Well, it's Friday. I guess it's the time we do the Let's Talk Data Engineering show. So today we have Chris Tabb. Thanks for joining us. It's pretty late over there. So
I'm hungry.
We'll try to make it quick so you can eat.
It's okay. It's okay.
Also joining us is Aaron Hunsaker. What's up?
How's it going?
Awesome. Good to see you. Cool. So we got some topics we want to talk about today. I think, data quality, data governance. If we have time, we can talk about anything else. I'm sure we'll get a bunch of listener Q&A in the process. So, Chris, what's been on your mind with respect to data quality and governance lately?
I'm glad you're very specific with your question. You went straight to what's on with data quality. No room for going and deviating there, was it? Whose responsibility is it? We had a brief chat about it. We know who ends up dealing with it. All right, it's the data scientist doing the data prep. It's the ETL tools doing the cleaning, or it's your Informatica, very expensive tool. No plug for them, honestly, but doing all your data quality processing and dealing with that. Or is it the point it's ingested? Is it the source system's responsibility to make sure the drop-down box is spelt correctly? Don't get me to do the reference data, because anyone out there knows my spelling is awful. But there's a story in there somewhere, but not today. It's that part of it, of making sure that you're validating the information that goes in there. You've got whatever controls. I call it a data quality firewall. Call it. It's the point you can stop bad data. We're on live. I'll keep it. That polluting that data. You can't stop everything. If someone goes and puts a date in there of 1900 or something, you can't stop that. It's still a date, at least. At least it's not going to break your pipeline. But at least minimizing that funnel of bad data coming in. So that's one thing. That's one thing. But I'm going to pause there, because otherwise I'll rant too much. I'm in a ranty week this week, honestly.
Right. I'll rant for a second, and then Joe can come.
Yeah, please give me a breath, because I just run over here.
Okay. And the problem with data quality is that it is really a decentralized problem, right? So even if you have a central data quality management team and they're using an ETL tool, or you're doing it at the source systems, who's going to pick up the regressions? Because it really is a regression problem. So in other words, someone turns on a test tool, it starts injecting events that aren't real events, but no one's differentiating those from the actual customer side events. It ends up in your data warehouse. Data scientists or data analysts find it. And then either even if you have a data quality team, if you don't have good collaboration, then they don't listen to the data scientist and nothing gets fixed, even though they have this really nice shiny tool. No one picks up the regression. No one's made aware of it, and it does not get processed.
Why have a data quality team if they're not going to collaborate with people?
Yeah, exactly. It's got
I mean, spot on. And two things you said there, Matt, just really resonated. Is the ability to have the ownership of those problems when it comes in, and that right to correct. When it gets wrong, when it goes wrong, is don't have that code embedded in some old COBOL programming and go, oh, that guy Bob, he went and he spelled quarterly wrong. So now it's hard coded with the wrong thing in there. I'm not saying my name was Bob or anything like that, but it might have been, So he spelled it wrong there, and now after that, it's hard coded that correction because it came in there, because they never corrected the source system, because they wouldn't do it for you. So, and then when they did go and correct it, they didn't go and update the update take time. So when your batch window came in, it never picked up the change anyway. So, not saying that happened as well. So it's that right to repair, which is key, because once that stuff's in there, it's never going away, and you'll have business logic embedded in places you'll never see or never uncover. And a data scientist comes on, gets the data from source, and go, what the hell is this extra month? What's this extra time zone thing called quarterly spelled wrong? I mean, doesn't make sense. Where did it come from? It was from my bad spelling. That's probably where it came from. But so that was one thing. And the other one was ownership of the problem. Okay, so right. You go and buy the Rolls Royce solution. You're going to bought Calibra. Their sales reps, he's off bought his Ferrari or whatever he's going to spend his money on. He's probably out in a yacht around the corner from me, in parked up over there. So, He doesn't care about how you use it. He doesn't care about whether it actually gets used. He's like, done, right, great. So now you've got this data governance team that you go and build. Okay, and they're sat in there. They're called governance. All right, so yeah, all right. The term governance is like
command and control, right? It's like
exactly.
we are going to control all the data, and it takes us 6 months to do anything because they're like, I've approved.
Yeah. What's the non-governance route? What's the route around that? Is there a B road that you do for the governance one? Is like an underground tunnel where you go into it? Yes, there's loads of them, and you see them all over the place. So being that term governance, people are going to take it in route. But being like, I'm the data community, or maybe I'm the data guild. I'm here to help. I'm here to path you on the right way. I'm not here to stop. I want to give value out of the data. And something I can't remember the lady's name, but there's a data ops or data. It was data set, data with ops in it somewhere. Anyway, there's an extra item. A data gov ops probably. They probably stuck that in there. It was actually And she could. What's the real function of a data governance team? And most people say, well, it's to protect the data, it's for the privacy, it's to make sure that no one gets hold of it. No, it's not. What's the point? Because that's your business asset. That's how you're meant to. You're gonna make money with this stuff. Are you gonna are you some high street that you're gonna be dead in a few years? No, you need it. That data, you've got it for a purpose. All right, you're paying money to store it for a purpose. You're paying your data science team. I told you I was ranty. The data science team, they're there for a purpose. Don't pay them to go and oh, by the way, you've got to fill in this form to go and decrypt it. Then you've got a queue over there. That's the governance team. That's a long queue. Yeah, sorry. If you can fast track it, but you could get caught out. You might jump over the gate. Talking probably Joe about your time going to gate crash. If you went through with the ticket or you got in through the back door.
Aaron knows about this too.
Yeah, I didn't even know that happened. Was that true, Joe? I just made that.
Yeah, I think you need to be careful too. So with data governance, and data quality. Right, because it's not really a centralized problem. When I'm talking about data quality, what data am I talking about? Am I talking about the views on top of batch BI data? Am I talking about the data quality of log JSON objects that might be used to fed some machine learning model that's in production? And the type of person that's going to be able to write a Spark job that feeds this machine learning model that's in production, that's got some latency requirements, it has to happen in under 100 milliseconds, and it's got to be lightweight, is going to know more about that type of data than the type of person that's going in and creating logical schemas and all these things for these materialized views. And then the other thing is the big thing they talk about in data governance is legacy, or the lineage, right? What's the lineage of the data? How many times has it been stepped on? Because how can we say it feeds right into quality? Because how can we say something's quality if it's been stepped on by 5 different processes? And then who wrote the query that aggregated it, right? And you give me 5 different BI engineers or 5 different data engineers or analysts, and you're going to have 5 different aggregations half of the time. So these are really hard questions, but I could just rant with you, Chris. If you,
man, we need to meet up and have some beers, mate.
Let me show
is that data heritage? Is that data? Is that data? Kite marking, gold ceiling, golden location for it. It's the one place your product list is correct, and you go and get it. It's these are data assets, and the more you don't manage them, the more you. Yeah, we definitely can rant more. Come here. The more you just
comment real quick here from Ask DevOps. How's it going? Thanks for the comments here. I think this is actually it highlights a pretty big issue. I'd actually written in maybe something to talk about GDPR, the new pending EU AI regulations here. But Ask DevOps says GDPR is great, but they don't provide any help given guidance on how to do it. That itself is a biggest issue, I feel. So I kind of wonder if this is a feature or a bug with GDPR and any other regulations, right? I mean,
it's written by people that didn't know how they can implement it. Oh, you really touched my buttons there, I tell you. So So I mean, having that team sitting in the corner, they go, right, okay, that's the law, right? We'll not let anyone see that at all. Okay, right, we'll do. If it's unimplementable, if it prevents you actually operating as a business, if it prevents you actually making any money, well, don't bother. Well, it doesn't matter because the GDPR fines are based on like turnover. So you've got no turnover, no worries, mate. You're not going to get a fine. So you're right on that. There is no one, and many people try. We'll solve your GDPR problem in a box. This thing. It's all down to interpretation. It's all down to risk, associated risk of it. So if you're a 20-man team, we don't need to go for like ISO like 27 like compliance thing. Go through all of that. Make sure you've got encryption. Well, you do make sure you have encryption wherever you can, but
please do.
There's appropriate levels of controls for the appropriate risk. So you will not be able to get I've seen no company that you go there and say they're 5 on everything on their day. Okay, yeah, tick, 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 great, well done, right, well done, job done. You're doing a great job. No company is that. You look to the areas that you're most exposed, that provide the most risk, and at least do best practice. Give it to the data community, that data governance people. So like, here you go, here it is there. Like, don't. If people are like going around the corner doing these going around the governance team just to like bypass processes, you've got more risk than actually being an open department to go, okay, how will we manage that? If you say, yeah, okay, if you do this, it's fine. Everyone will come to the governance team. If they go, right, not allowed to do that, that's it, done. You're not going to go to them. No.
Yeah, I agree. Have you guys read the Phoenix Project? That's a DevOps book, but I think there's some good ideas in there for data governance as well. And so one of the ideas in there is that like security needs to start being a collaborative part of the team. In other words, security is no longer there just to block things. They're there to make sure the company is protected, but also to make sure in that case, the software developers can get their jobs done. Or in this case, the data scientists, data engineers can get their jobs done while also being secure. Yeah.
Yeah, they're there to help you, not there to hinder you. Yeah,
exactly what you're saying. Yeah,
it was interesting. I remember when GDPR, at least in the States, when it first came out, it was May 25th of 2018, I think. I remember like around May 23rd, everyone was like, I don't understand this, so I'm just going to delete any data that's older than 30 days. It's actually was like the response I saw. It was pretty common, which for the downstream effects of that, I can imagine are pretty big, because like, what would your data analyst or data scientist use?
They'd use a zip file they put to their personal directory and then download that.
Yeah, like a file.
Just don't tell anyone.
Maybe there's some idea of like masking the data, but I think there was some part of GDPR where it was like, well, any data that could be used to identify somebody, right? And then it's like, well, any data, if you trace back hard enough, you can probably identify somebody with it. Therefore, I guess no data is probably the right answer. Ding, ding, done. Yeah. So we'll just delete it.
I just had a thought there. The good thing is probably the people that investigate it, the people who wrote the policy, they're not going to find out, are they?
Well, what do you think about the new EU AI regulations that have been proposed? I mean, that I think kicks the GDPR to like 11.
Yeah, I mean AI ethics explainers and like being able to evidence the decision you've made is a good thing, and I think that it will highlight any bias. It will highlight things that could have been seen as biased that actually weren't biased. Now, look, I didn't make it up. The test training, the test data sets that are used for it, that's the problem. I mean, that you can never train anything unless you've got quality. Oh, back to quality, and we're going around in circles, aren't we? That quality data piece. So you could test data with unknowingly with like polluted data that's biased, and then after that you train your algorithm, it goes live, and it's stopping people getting mortgages when they're allowed to because of some glitch that someone put in some postal region. They got the wrong demographics associated to it. Now that's affected someone's life. They cannot get that mortgage now that they wanted. So being able to easily say, well, that was right, or is that? Oh, that's wrong. Try and work that out from a paper trail of like some mortgage guy that's gone and stamped it, passed it over. Oh, we don't know. Well, you can get it. You can't evidence it. Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot more a rise of like synthetic data, even more than already has.
That's a good
for that
point.
Reason. So
yeah.
Shout out to my friend Fabiana Clement over at Y-Data.
Okay.
Good job with the synthetic data over there. But yeah,
that's a good point, Joe. I mean, because even if your data set is really clean, in other words, it's a good sample of the population, then you're just building in the existing prejudices of the system, right? And so you're just sort of recycling them into an infinite loop. And so I guess to your point, Joe, the goal would be to sort of at least counteract that to a degree, using synthetic data that's based on real data, but not the same.
Yeah, I think so. What are your thoughts, Aaron?
Well, I think it's a good thing. I mean, if people are being sentenced, and tried on some of these AI algorithms, and people not having to explain them, and they're definitely showing the same discrimination that our current system would already show, right? According to some people, right? Not trying to go down that rabbit hole too much, but the thing I wonder though is, right, so like even if you made the data available for the AI, you still have to if you have a machine learning model, right, that has 1,000 features in it, can you still really audit that and tell how the model came up with that decision? Because I don't know that I could think of a way. Right. Because even the way we test models in production for a lot of these things, we don't test them by seeing if all these features go the way that they're supposed to go within the model. Right. We test it by saying if we want these outputs, right, we train it here and then we test it on this data set. So we basically give the model an exam. But I still don't know how they would say, well, how can you explain every little like piece of how this model made a decision? Even if you made I don't know how it's possible. Kind of like I don't know how GDPR is possible if your name is somewhere in a HDFS log, you know what I mean? That your own engineers can't even find it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Imagine your name's hidden in a JSON file, gone to Glacier. Right.
Yeah. Like you tried to remove some people from Hadoop, right in Spark. We couldn't even find the data. So how, if this is a GDPR, like I can't even find it. So how is anyone else going to find this and even know it's there? And if I can't even explain my own model, so I just think that it's not all the way thought out that way.
I mean, I only give one example I've seen recently. So it was a company called Selden that we work with as well, but they were showing how the recognition of lorries is made. So why did it decide that it looked like a lorry? And you think, oh, it's going to be the wheels. No, it was actually the windscreen. It was, but then I saw like a really good one was how you can confuse AIs. Like fried chicken was looking like a poodle. So if you add enough if you pollute your poodle like photograph so much with fried chicken, you can trick the AI to thinking the poodles. Well, I don't know which way around, but it's So it's that quality data set verification of it. Yeah.
And I just think that a lot of these, they're thinking about this kind of regulation from a traditional software practice where we can write a deterministic system and then we can run these test cases in it and see if it works. And that's just, I think that legislation might be a little bit, I think it's good to move in that direction, but they might need help from some more people that can explain some things. Right?
Yeah, they need to iterate the legislation. The problem is that the tendency is to write legislation and then just let it sit for 20 or 30 years, like the Digital Millennium Copyright Act in the United States that was like 1999, that was written really to favor very particular media companies. And I don't know if a lot of that stuff is still in place 20 years later, So,
yeah. Kind of switching gears a bit though, Chris, I mean, you mentioned that kind of going back to committees and data communities and all this stuff within organizations. I mean, at what size or maturity of a company do you start doing this stuff? Because I can't imagine this a lot of startups are having like a data governance committee or any committees really.
I'm just gonna have to clarify that I have not even spoken to Joe about this before. So if anyone's listening that they think, my God,
this is all improv. It's like enthusiasm.
Told Joe what we discussed earlier on. No, this is just coincidence. Very, very interesting. Well, very topical conversation. So, at what point do you think your data is, or your company is the size where you need to have a dedicated data team, a dedicated dev infosec, or dedicated DPO officer? So it probably goes back down to that risk thing again. Depending on what industry you're in, that may affect it. So there's probably no if you get to 50 people, you'll get one. But it's probably a combination of size of company, size of risk, and size of your data sets. But at some point, you're going to hit that point where you go, right, we're not building this platform over here that collects the data. We're actually building products out of that data that may sit on another platform that we need people to look after it. We need a data product owner of it. We need someone to make sure that sits between them to understand where that data's coming. Someone that data governance, where's that DPO or InfoSec? They sit in either data management, data governance, but they're really just part of that data community. You take the departments out of it, take the job titles out of it. Everyone has a different persona there. Everyone has a different vested interest. Everyone wants to achieve their own objectives, but they need to achieve the company's objectives. The company's objective is to make money. If they need to make money, they need to work together. To work together, they need to work in a community. To work in a community, you need to meet regularly, be able to speak openly, and not get into arguments. That's what I think.
Chris, what kind of tools? Like, I know, like a company I was at uses Elation. What kind of tools do you like for data governance and data lineage? And then kind of tack onto that a little bit. If I have a startup and I think that I'm going to have data problems in 10 years, but I don't now, can I just have a process? Do I need a committee? Can I just get a tool or something open source and work that way, right? This is like uncanny. Right? Every week we have if you keep bringing up the same things I've had this week, it's going to be a bit coincidental. I think my phone's been bugged or something. But so what you say is you need to you need to work together. Just work together with them. I lost my train of thought, actually.
Well, I think, Aaron, maybe some tools that a startup could use. Like right now, there's a lot of new tools, open source tools that are being released. I think addresses things like data quality, for example, and some elements of governance. Yeah. So if you're strictly looking at tools, like there's great expectations for data quality, Y logs. I'm talking strictly open source tools. There's probably a ton of others. Observability, there's a lot of things going on there.
It's the process.
Because now there's an explosion in tools for data governance, whereas I would say even a few years ago, this was like not the area of interest for anybody except large companies. And now all of a sudden you're seeing, I have friends raising a lot of money for their data quality startups and stuff.
And I guess a better question would have been, do you guys see value in these tools? Like Elation, I think there's some value in Elation showing the lineage and things like that. And, do you see value in the tools? If you're building your startup and maybe you don't have a data committee yet, do you see value in implementing some of these tools early on in the process?
Let me answer it this way. I don't see any value in doing any tool unless you have the a culture in place that's going to allow these things to succeed. Because data governance is really, it's more like a full contact sport with other people in the company, so it's kind of like, Matt brought up the data quality team, not collaborating with people. To me, that's like, why do you even have a data quality team in the first place if you're not going to collaborate with anybody? Like, it seems pointless. Just let everyone do their thing and just deal with it, whatever unquality problems you happen to have. So I would say it's more of a cultural and organizational issue when you're talking about governance, because I've seen companies do data governance really well just using Confluence, basically, right? And like a wiki. So versus companies that invest a ton of money into these tools and don't really get the corresponding output precisely because they haven't taken the time to, build the collaboration, the relationships, and the trust that you really need to do proper governance in the first place.
Totally. Yeah, it's that community thing. Yeah, so back to Elation, we use that. To Joe's point, there's soda we've seen as well. Great expectations. There's a good lot of open source out there. At the right time, a startup, get the processes right. Get to know where that data is first. At the point it becomes unmanageable, and you've got that team now where it becomes cost effective. I've got 5 people managing spreadsheets, but the data's late now. It's not working. Right, now's the time to go and buy that tool to help manage that. It's at the right time, but recognizing when you need to do it is going to be each company's going to be very different. It's going to be based on the workload it generates trying to demonstrate the value of it to a board to say, okay, I need you to spend £150,000 on this data quality tool. I think we did this on one of the other ones, didn't it? It was like, hey, call it call it performance data. We said, no, call it high performance data.
That's right.
Yeah.
Did you coin that on one of these shows, Chris?
No,
Sorry,
you know,
go ahead.
And then he had a post on it, and it got some interesting feedback.
Yeah, I mean, the funniest one, if you're listening, I thought it was funny. I'm not saying it, but it was a guy who said, no, data's not high performant, the systems are. Anyway,
I saw that comment.
I saw his job title. He was a performance architect.
Yeah, I remember
performance engineer. So hold on, if systems can't, how can engineers be performing? How can architects be performing? So the key was that it's the fuel of the data is the fuel of your system. So it needs to be high performant. You don't put, and we're repeating it a little bit, you don't put like cheap Tesco's fuel in your, it's a Walmart fuel. We don't put cheap Walmart fuel in your brand new Ferrari. You put the top quality. You've gone to the best petrol station. You put that in it. You probably haven't even filled it yourself. You got some guy to do it. But don't put, make sure the stuff you put into your systems to make a decision is high quality.
Got a bit of a tangential question here. Would anyone on the panel be interested in speaking to University of Tennessee business analytics students? Sure.
I can't say at the moment.
Yeah, shoot us a message. Probably Chris not at the moment, but I think a lot of us are comfortable speaking to students. We do this all the time.
If you pay for a flight, I'll come over to Tennessee because I can see these guys on the way back.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you in advance, Brian. Get Chris a ticket. We'll see you in a bit. Thank you.
I'll go in.
But yeah, it's an interesting question, right? And it's one of those things I think I'm glad data governance is starting to get a lot more attention. But it's also one of these squishy topics.
And it gives people PTSD. I mean, if they've been in an enterprising, top-down, command and control environment where really data governance prevents you from getting work done, and where it takes 6 months to add a field.
It sounds great on paper.
Rep now.
Nothing about your cats is brilliant.
I think the one thing that everyone is agreeing, and which I agree on too, is you can't just implement Elation and then have it solve everything. Or you can't just come and bring a data governance squad on and say, okay, go find all these data stewards and data owners, and that's just going to solve everything. You need the company culture to be based around data. And if you don't have that, that's probably first, I think, is what I got from Joe and Chris. And I'm going to infer that Matt would probably agree.
I agree. And especially at a startup. I mean, even at a startup, you can have the communication problem between software development and analytics. Back to what you were saying, Chris, where when a field gets messed up on the software development side, there's just no communication between the two sides, right? So data quality just goes downhill.
I guess where I'm kind of going with that is there a model for working with startups, right? To say, you should be thinking about these types of data issues before you even have them, and building this kind of culture into the startup before you even get your Series C funding or whatever. You know what I mean? Should we start thinking about that up front?
Yeah.
It's called the data.
Startups are an interesting beast, right? Because I think, at least in the startups that I've worked at and dealt with, unless you're a data first startup, meaning your product is a data product, these aren't actually going to be the things that startup founders or the first engineers are concerned with. I'm not going to use the word shocking because I don't think that it is at all, and I shouldn't be surprised, because if you're a software engineer and you're developing the MVP of an app, or you're developing the first kind of go to market, you're focused on the performance of the application. I would say it's rare that data is actually a consideration. So I would say the way that you get better data governance within a startup, for example, is actually probably through the engineers who are building these systems. Because if they don't approach things from a data first mindset, they're going to architect systems and applications that simply aren't data first. They don't lend themselves well to analytics, to machine learning, and so forth. How do you communicate this, though? Right? This is a central question that Matt and I struggle with a lot.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of my question.
It's about translating a lot of the concepts of data over to software engineers, right? I think this is a big one that we see over and over. What do you think, Chris?
Go back to that data community thing. So part of that data community is it's open to anyone, right? If you're interested, I use a spreadsheet every now and then, and I download it from here, from that system over there, and then I go and plug over here. I'll go along to the data community, find out a little bit more, and they find out, oh, hold on, can't I just build an interface between these things? Oh, I'm actually quite interested in this, and I know about the business. Now I'm adding value with the data. Now you've actually found I've called them before, that rough diamonds within your own business. You've got someone that has that business mindset. And another problem is that everyone that seems to get into data normally comes through that IT perspective route, and then they get the business thing when they're in there. So they're not all the case, not always, but coming that route, that you have that one. If you've got someone embedded in your business already that now can take that transferable knowledge back to becoming maybe cross training, becoming a data engineer, modeling the data. You've now probably you've saved on recruitment fees. You've probably got a very valuable asset that you've just got that you wouldn't have thought before. He's adding value because of that, and that's because you've got that data community. You brought them together. So another role of that is finding new talent within your business, and then embracing, training them, helping them. Don't any IT people out there. Someone asks you some stupid questions because they're just starting playing around with data. Help them. If you give them the time, they'll learn something. If they haven't come from an IT background, but with a bit of coaching, they can get it. It's not just for people that have got a master's in computer science to do this stuff. I know that for a fact because I haven't. So
got a good question here. Kind of on a related note. Hi, a very interesting and topical conversation is coming from Auntie Rask. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. What would you say are the first steps to take if one was to introduce data governance to a smaller yet older organization, 50 to 100 people, that handles a lot of data and now is also taking first steps and also analyzing data, and perhaps more advanced things at a later stage? What do you guys think?
I would say, the very first thing, I always like to say that the analysts and data scientists know where the bodies are buried. In other words, you don't have to tell them to find data quality problems. They'll tell you if you ask the question. And so it goes back to the Confluence thing, Joe. It's like, take a survey and say, all right, everyone who's handling data, all of our analysts, tell me what's your top data quality problem. Let's just put it in to Confluence, and then let's sit down and review that together and try to set some priorities. That's where I would start.
I think parallel activity probably to that is like you got to get the CEO to buy into this. So maybe use the first pass of that information of that finding out where the rot is. All right, get some business use cases from that rot. That system there that had that bad data, that made this decision that cost you that money because when you went to the board with your static PowerPoint presentation that you took last week, we had a mistake in it. So they're hard to find. You see what you can get, and you can take what you can, and then you pimp it up a bit. You take that, and then you take that to the board, and you go, I want sponsorship for this high performance data project, which we still coined. Which I'm sorry, performance engineer, if I upset you with that, but it's just a joke, okay? You take that, you go, right, you've got investment. I'm backing you for this project, and now that small little team you found, they've got the backing now. They know. They said, I found this data before. No one's ever done it before. It was happening again. Why should I even bother looking for this stuff now? All right. So now you've got that board backing. Yeah. My God, someone's actually listening. Someone actually believes that. So I will do this now. I'll go above and beyond. I'll point out when this stuff's happening now. People need to care about their data. People need to see the value in it, and that needs to start at the top.
And just to tack on to what Chris said, I don't think I see this a lot with data engineers, data scientists. Don't ever assume that the executives and people, the more customer facing side or whatever it is, right, thinks that these are problems, right? I think a lot of data scientists and analysts take for granted they see that you have data problems. But don't think that your CEO sees this as a problem. You can't take that for granted. It's like when you're around a bunch of people that know math and you take for granted that everyone knows math. And then you meet someone that's never done calculus and you describe a limit to them and they're like, what the heck is that? I don't even know what that is, right? It's the same with data. Like you can't just assume that anyone that's going to pay for this initiative sees that it's a problem. You have to really get your good, let's say, data communication.
Yeah.
How do you sell it though?
You put a lovely PowerPoint up, you make sure it gets on the CEO's desk at the end of the month, and you have a red flag on it saying data is bad, it's costing you money. Oh, probably other ways as well.
Case studies compared to like where the trends are going, I think that if you can show that intelligence is a big key component to it, but the intelligence is off, what kinds of decisions are made off of this intelligence? I think like there's a lot of routes you can go, and I'm not saying they're easy, Joe, but I just do think that a lot of people don't even try to sell it, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I think people are just like, can't they just see that this is bad? And, no, they actually don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that one guy who was interviewed by the Bobs in Office Space. He's like, "Don't you get it?" Yeah, that guy got fired too.
He was the communicator, right? That was his job.
He was,
like, communicate the business requirements or something, kind of like data communication.
It's a great point by Aaron. We always stress to our students that statistical significance only matters to us.
Sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's what matters to everyone else.
Don't try to explain confidence intervals to an exec that doesn't have a statistics degree.
Oh,
I've done that.
No.
It doesn't go well.
Okay.
Well, fair play for trying.
Yeah, cool. Glad we could answer your question, Auntie. Good luck in your endeavors. The advice is worth the price you just paid for it. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, my friend Scott Taylor, he talks about, I guess, telling stories around data in an organization, how you could sell like things like data quality and whatnot. And his first rule is like, don't ever mention data quality or governance. People, if you want to like scare people away, like this is like these are the words you would use to like cripple your initiative. And so I would say go and read Scott Taylor's Telling Your Data Story. I think the title of the book is. He does a fantastic job. His whole thing is talking about master data management as being sort of like the root solution to a root cause of bad data. I do tend to agree with a lot of what he says, and his book is, I think, really, really good as a blueprint for people who want to learn to communicate with execs in the business about how you're going to make your change initiatives with data. It's tricky, right? Because like the nerds like us will communicate in exactly probably the wrong ways. I would say that we're all pretty good at it because we communicate with a lot of stakeholders now, and we've learned what not to do, but that's only been through learning what not to do.
Battle scars. But yeah.
Exactly.
Pocket protector scars, the whole thing. So,
explaining regression. Was Daniel Kahneman, did he say explaining regression to the mean? If a jury has to explain regression to the mean, or if a lawyer has to explain regression to the mean to the jury, they've lost the case. That's the same. Sorry, I stumbled on it a bit.
Right on. Yeah.
It's a Kahneman said that in his book, right? And I think that's, if I have to explain what an ML model is or what data quality is to an exec, I've already lost my opportunity. I need to explain in terms of what the value is and what the output is always, because no one cares how the machines work,
Here's a guy that really knows his stats here. He said that 9 out of 10 customers prefer gas.
This guy's got a good sense of humor, or he actually is very passionate about his job at Tesco's. I'm not sure which it
The
is.
show is not sponsored by Tesco, by the way. So if you guys
next week.
Tesco wants to sponsor
And
the
as
show,
to do just the same quality fuel as the other ones, but yeah.
for a fraction of the price.
Have you tried explaining the difference between reference data and master data to someone?
Oh,
and then
Lord.
why is that different to your CRM data?
In the book, we tried. It's not easy.
Okay. I didn't. Yeah, I gave up after.
But we have to cover that kind of stuff, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those unfortunate topics where the moment you start talking about data management, data governance, everybody's got an opinion and everybody's going to check you, right? Because it's just like dangerous waters, and unfortunately, everyone's a piranha in these waters. And so you at least got to mention like reference data, even though like barely anyone talks about that. So.
Yeah, it's that making people aware. It's that knowledge thing as well. It's like getting that knowledge out there. People understanding these different sorts of data. The words get used interchangeably, and then it gets confusion. No one understands. So yeah, just that basic knowledge, and maybe there's a book that you may be writing that can help satisfy some of these misunderstandings.
We'll work on it. That's a lot to live up to.
You got a lot. You got a lot on the moment.
Awesome. Well, I think it might be a good place to probably end up. I think it looks like it's getting nighttime there, Chris.
Chris needs to eat dinner.
Want to go enjoy your evening and wonderful wherever you are. So
yeah, Ibiza.
Yeah.
The people who are flatting, they just turned up, and I had to go and let them in. So they're being
awesome. Well, we'll be back a couple of Fridays from now doing the Let's Talk Data Engineering show. Thanks for everyone who attended, asked some great questions. Shout out to Tesco for their great gasoline.
We should ask who they use for their analytics. I mean, we can tell you how good your fuel is if you give it access to your data. So we'll provide that service if you like.
Okay, awesome. All right, man. Well, have a good night. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks, and we'll take care, everybody. See you.